Hey guys, welcome back. It's Chrissy with Aurora Interiors. I am the owner and lead designer here at Aurora Interiors in Tacoma, Washington. For today's video, we are going to talk about lighting and interior design. So the first things first, there is 3 different types of lighting. So there's your general lighting or your ambient lighting, there's your accent lighting, and then there is task lighting. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each one of those and how they affect your overall design. So here at Aurora Interiors, something that we do for every single project of ours is create a lighting plan. So in that lighting plan, we also create a switching plan, which shows where you're going to be turning your lights on and off. And that's something that I think can get overlooked or not thought about enough, because the placement of how you walk throughout your space and where you naturally go to turn a light on really does make a difference. So that's just kind of a side note on lighting. But in general, when we are planning out lighting in a design of ours, we want to consider all 3 types of lighting. So we typically start off by figuring out what the general lighting is going to look like. What that means is that's your can lights. That is your typical overhead lighting that is used to light up the space primarily. And then your accent lighting and your task lighting, they're in the background. They are not what's mainly lighting up your space. So with general lighting, there is a couple things to consider. So one would be the size of can light used. So commonly 6 inches is utilized. It is the least expensive can light size. But what is considered a little bit more high end is to do a 4-inch can. So they're smaller, and therefore that means you'll have a little bit more lights to put in the plan if we utilize 4-inch cans. And they are a little bit more expensive, but they do look really sleek. So something to consider is the size of the can will have a different beam spread. So when we are laying out a lighting design, we're considering how far out that can light is going to cover as far as how much of the room it lights up. Another thing to consider with general lighting is the overall color temperature. So that is measured in the Kelvin scale. So what that means is how warm or cool is your light going to be. So the cooler the light is, the higher the Kelvin temperature. So if you like really cool blue toned lighting, think sterile, think doctor's office, that's going to be about 5,000 kelvins. If you like more neutral, just kind of your general lighting, we're probably going to be around 3,500 kelvins. I find that most of my clients are somewhere between liking 3,500 kelvins to 4,000, maybe 4,500. But there is a special consideration to make when considering color temperature for lighting, and that is the fact that our eyes age as we get older. So when our eyes age, they actually start to yellow. So that means that once our eyes are starting to yellow, we're going to prefer cooler temperatures. So that's something that we consider when we're designing. Another thing would be the placement of those cans. So overall, like I said, the different size cans are going to have a different beam spread. So we are going to consider that when we're placing the lights, but we are also going to consider what activities are being done in the room that we're lighting up. Well, if we're lighting up a kitchen, let's say we have a sink, we have a fridge, stove, and we have these little aisleways there. I prefer to have my can lights placed so that they are acting as general lighting centered in the aisleway versus having them more so like overlapping on the counter, if that makes sense. Because again, the idea is that this is general lighting. Moving into task lighting, in a kitchen, let's say we're adding in task lighting, that would be the lights underneath our cabinets, maybe lights underneath a shelf. That's our lights underneath our hood vent. Other spots for task lighting is anywhere where you are specifically performing an activity that you are lighting up that spot, especially for that activity. So let's say you put a light right over your sink. That would be a task light for you doing dishes, you doing stuff at the sink. It can also double as an accent light though, so that's where it gets tricky, because let's say you put a task light at your sink, but you make it decorative. It serves both purposes. Some other spots that you would have task lights include having lamps. So you're in your family room, you have a lamp on, that's a task light. Maybe you're reading a book. Other things that would be task lighting. Task lights are not about overall lighting a space. It's about lighting up a spot for something in particular. Okay, lastly, we have accent lighting. So that's going to be lights that are serving more of a decorative purpose. So they do also act as general lighting in some instances. So like your pendants at your island, they're lighting up the island, but they're also there for aesthetic reasons. So a lot of our pendants, I'm staring at the pendants in my showroom right now, they have, a lot of them are the candelabra bulbs, so they're smaller. They're not meant to be the only lighting in a room. They are really meant to accent the area. They're meant to be pretty. A lot of times they're a softer light. They just add in a layer. So our overall goal when we're doing lighting is to have all three of those lighting types in a room so that we create layers of light. A room is not gonna feel balanced unless we have all three of these things. And when we do, you're looking around and you're gonna be like, this feels good. Because for a lot of people, it's like one type of lighting could be too much. I tend to prefer to be in spaces where I just have accent or task lighting on. I don't like a ton of overhead light. I find it to be overstimulating sometimes, honestly. So I like to have on just my pendant lights or just my lamp and have that more soft lighting. But the good part is that I can have the options of what I want to have turned on. So that's why having layers of light is super important. Thank you guys for watching today's video on lighting and the 3 different types of lighting and design. If you guys have any questions, let me know below.